Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel, and I am joined by Joseph once more. Welcome back to the channel, Joseph.
Hey, thanks for having me.
No problem. And today we're going to talk about sigils and veves and some other topics. So, yeah, let's go ahead and lead in, Joseph, and let's talk about sigils and how they're used, what they are, and everything around them.
Sigils are really diverse and they're really versatile. There's like unlimited ways you can make them. They can be drawn on different materials. They can be, worn. They can be burned. They can be carried for a long time or for a short time. Sigils are kind of like limitless, but then, it's like, some of the greatest examples of sigils being used as talismans, are like in like the different grimoire traditions, and especially the use of like the planetary pentacles, because like they have a use within the context of that they're written about, as well as the context of their use outside of that, whether it's like something just for general luck or something for to so that certain spirits of place are more receptive to receiving you. They're kind of unlimited, but within their unlimitedness, there's kind of like a set kind of things that they tend to be used for. They're going to be used for something that's going to affect you in the world, something that's going to affect the area around you in the world. Something that's going to attract attention to you or away from you.
It seems like they can be aligned to many things, like either planetary alignment or gods or spirits or a particular thing that you want to manifest within yourself or in the external world. So there's so many ways that they can like play into what you're talking about for sure.
Oh yeah, it's like sigils have they are kind of like they're handy for in almost every situation. But I think though when it comes to like the understanding of like what a sigil is, like what we just talked about, and like what a veve is or what a veve is trying to do, is where like people maybe don't have such a great understanding, because like just because something can be a sigil doesn't mean that's what's its intended purpose. I think that it's like I use a lot of tools, or I use a lot of tools wrong probably, but I use them, I use them for what I need them to, how I need them to work. And so I think that's what a lot of people are interacting with, like Veves for, without totally understanding what the use of a Veve is for. So it's like, a Veve, unlike a sigil, is supposed to be temporary. Like it's supposed to be temporary. It's supposed to be very, very liminal. They're usually traced on the earth itself, like with different kinds of food, different kinds of colored materials. Depending on the kind of spirit or the energy that you're calling.
A lot of them set on fire, correct? Where you trace the outline with flammable rum, for instance. I've done that quite a bit, and trace the outline with flammable rum, and it becomes like a temporary portal in a sense, correct?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like you see that a lot in like Bala, where they'll use they'll trace their things with the gunpowder, and then they'll light the gunpowder and the lasso, and that really that's like almost like kind of like what's the word, like when you like when you with too much energy like fries the circuit, it's like a psh, where it's like kind of sending that energy in there in that kind of visceral kind of way, but it's
connection like cornmeal, for instance, because I know that. So like when you kind of like light the cornmeal on fire in the shape of the veve, or like when you light some kind of like food substance, is it kind of like an offering of food and the flammable liquid? Is it?
I've actually never lit the veve on fire. Usually when we're tracing it, or like, because sometimes they'll use in Haiti they'll use like different pigment colors, like stuff that's so that they can have kind of a wide variety of things, or because like what a veve isn't limited to just what we understand them to be. As far as like when you look on Google, like what's a veve, and you see but like an image of the saint or an image of the Loa or an image of anything can become a veve. It's like there are, just like we have like party planners and decorators in Haiti, you have people that are professional, veve tracers, and it's like as the word in Creole is tracer, to write the veve. And when you watch them, it's like watching like a graffiti artist, with a spray can, except they got cornmeal or they got some kind of powder, and they're doing it with that. But it's like the Veve is meant to change the energy in the space. It's meant to make like any place, like it could be anywhere. It could be in a parking lot in, Minnesota. It could be a field, somewhere else. And we're preparing that space to not only hold itself, but also to hold Ghede, the spirits of the spirit world, like the of our ancestors and the ancestors. And so it's like
are Veves used for Rada and Petua as well, correct?
For everybody. Everybody's got almost all the Loa have Veves. There's only a few that really they don't have one. They just have like they're affiliated with like another one. Like you'll see like for example, if not every road or every facet of a spirit has a Veve. It's like, if it's the Freda Veve, that's the one you use for the Fredas. If it's the Danto Veve, it's the one you use for the Dantos. It's like they can be very specific, but at the same time, when we're at a Vodou party, we're not just focusing our energy on one spirit or one Loa. We're focusing on all of them, but that doesn't mean we're chasing all of the Veves either, So it's like the energies that you're trying to prepare for, and so you incorporate those ones firstly,
Oh yeah, for sure. And so I had a question. So a lot of people think that Papa Legba is like a whole branch of Loa, correct? So like a lot of people think Papa Legba is like one entity, or the Fredas are one entity, or like not necessarily the Petua and the Rada. Nobody thinks that there's like one Petua and one Rada. But where's the divinic sections? Like where's the difference? Because for instance, like when I work at Papa Legba, I just call him Papa Legba. Like where's the specificity? And how are the different the individual names? How do they? What spirits are we contacting through these very specific individual names? How does that work?
So it's like, we know what Papa Legba is about, right? Papa Legba is about the barrier between the physical world, the spiritual world, the barrier period between outside and inside. He is the passage, the movement of energy, the motions of the sun. So the names, like just like we have like Legba, for instance, right? We know what we're going to be dealing with when we say Papa Legba. And then when we say, let's say we're Papa Legba Kativulo, right? That's the Legba is dealing with the morning sun, the dawn. So it's like the names of these different facets of these Loa are like the part of the world that they are governing or overseeing, right? Because Papa Legba is like a respect. It's like you're like the same respect you give to your dad or to whomever, and it's like just like with like in other titles that the Loa have like that, or like Met, like master, right, or Metress, mistress, or Mambo. It's like they have connotations within the world, and so it's like with Papa Legba. It's like we know that Legba's always going to do stuff that Legbas do. But then in particular, this Legba has this relationship with this extra thing, this extra part is like them.
So is it almost like if you're contacting a more specific Legba, you're almost contacting. So is it a facet of like a grander spirits? Because I know we kind of we have very similar thoughts when it comes to like everything being part of the same thing. Is it like? But is it a facet of are there many different titles that one Legba has? Or are we talking about very specific individual entities that are these different Legbas? And it's hard to draw these lines sometimes. I know it's hard to really quantify, because we're really with human beings, we're very in materialistic universe where everything is very separate. But is there a way to quantify them in that way?
Yeah. So we'll just break down Legba, for instance, like just that case. So there's a Legba that's called Legba Hun. Legba Hun is the first Legba that comes onto Earth, and is the delineation of north, south, east, west, right? By the fact that they are standing in a place, still in a place. And then there's let's see. Then there's Legba Legba Kai, right? Legba Kai is the Legba of the house, right? So they're the Legba that's doing all Legba stuff, but now they're also in charge of the process of the goings in and out and the businesses that happen around. Then there's Kelewande. Kelewande is the Legba that holds the keys, right? And so this is the Legba that's, between these worlds, like the living and the dead, but these things that have like very clear, either you're in or you're out, because you never sort of dead, either you are or you're not. And then it's like, and then so like, again we have Legba Katibulo, and then we have Legba Sibon, because Legba Sibon is he's like kind of the leader of all of the Legbas, or the primary Legba, but he also has a relationship with the noon sun, right? With it's in its most full bright, I guess, right? And then as you travel, in that with that sun pattern, you have Legba, the Vie Legba, and then you have who's the Legba at midnight? Then you have that one, and it's like, these all these places where Legba are at have their own mysteries that are kind of like, inlaid with them, that are special or important to the individuals that know that, like, that's the Legba that they interact with.
What it reminds me of is how you'll have different. So in Greek spiritualism and working with the gods and spirits, there'll be like a Zeus that you have in a pot in your house for protecting the doorways.
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
you have a Zeus in a different pot or in a figure for the fence around your house. And then you'll have a whole nother Zeus at the temple, for instance. And you might have and like Ares as well, like God of War. There might be an Ares of a spear, of a chariot. So like there's all these different, like, but it's all
They call them epithets.
Yeah, it's almost like you're tapping into a similar energy, but it's also making it specific. It's almost like you're cranking a dial to a very specific frequency, and it's so hard it's just a little bit hard for me, but it's hard to think of like things as being frequencies rather than like individual characters. But is it more like frequencies? It's more like specificity in that sense?
I would say it's actually kind of like both, especially in Vodou, because we got like a lot of these beings are also ancestors, or the idea that they're from the ancestors, right? A collection of them, or maybe individuals, right? But it also really is also too like a frequency, because it's like a person maybe they really have some kind of weird thing with like Legba Atibon, right? Maybe there's something screwy with that relationship, and it's really a different Legba that they're supposed to be addressing, and it could be like a matter of like the frequency that they're operating at, or the stuff that they're about, or the things that they bring in. They may need a different kind of vibe, and so it's like it's basically because there's so many different ways that these energies manifest in the world, that there are representatives for all those different ways that they represent.
That makes a lot of sense. And with the frequencies, do the offerings also change just a bit? And does the wording change? Like when you change a frequency, can you still use the same wording in a chant or prayer and the same offering? Or does it depend on how much the frequency changes, or how much specificity the who you're calling out to has in regards to who you're referring to?
I think for the most part, like Legba is a really good example for this, because Legba happens to take everything, right? So you can pretty much give him within some reasons almost anything, and he'll figure out how to use this. But it's like sometimes the offerings will change, the colors will definitely change sometimes, like what the colors we use to serve them. So like for example, my Legba is a Legba Atibon, and we serve him with red, black, brown, and white. But my goddaughter, who is originally from a different house, she also serves Legba Atibon, but their Atibon takes black and yellow, and it might. It's like these are the same kind of force, but they're being like understood through different lineages and different lenses, and so that's why it can be kind of like it's like that's where because when we're talking about definitiveness, right? Or it's like that's where it kind of can be tricky, because my relationship with my Loa is going to be different than someone else's somewhere else, and so it's like like for instance, one time I was doing a lave tet. We were doing a party afterwards, and we're talking about what was going to be on the Marasa get this kind of treat plates, of all just kind of like, kids' food, stuff like that, like chocolate, candy, this, that. And there was this Haitian lady who was like asking me, like, we're not going to put gingerbread on there. We're not going to put like, this or that. Because, like, I mean, like, yeah, I like gingerbread, but like, that's not what I'm giving the kid. You know what I mean? A kid that I would know, if I gave them gingerbread, they'd be like, what the fuck is this? So it's like, so like that's how that service will be different in my house, how I do it. It's like we do it this way. It's not that one way is better or right or wrong. One way may be more traditional for a certain time period or a certain place, but like, it's there's nothing saying that I can't do it that way, right? It's or
100%. And I feel like is it almost like the relationship you have is also the way that you dial the frequency, because the relationship is just a little bit different because we're talking about different foods and different colors, and it's almost like that is the dial, but also what you're reaching out for. But I think that what a lot of people like mistake or don't understand is actually, in order to turn the dial and actually tune in, you have to have that caring, actually like wanting to reach out to these Loa. And if you don't want to, and if you're just trying to get something back, it's almost like you're breaking the knob. And there's no way that even if you get everything right as far as like offering and colors, as far as like the layouts, it just won't work the same way, because the original frequency, the baseline frequency, is a relationship. Is that correct?
Yeah, totally it is. It's like, it's about reciprocity. That's the entirety of Vodou. Whether it's between humans and humans, or humans and spirits, or spirits and humans, it's always reciprocity.
It's so odd, because when I first started my relationship with Papa Legba, this was or mine. I always had the idea of like gold or yellow and white, and then later on, years later, I started to realize, oh, a lot of people use red as well. I was like. It's almost like it was adding an addition to my dial, and it was just a slight difference, but like it was just like, oh, I had no idea something like that.
It's kind of interesting, I think, because, and this is just something personally I do. It's not something that is like, within the tradition of this is how we do it. But I noticed that a lot of people who start off with relationships with Legba, whatever colors that they were working with Legba, have a tendency to reflect the way that Legba's manifesting for them. Yellow and white is, for example, that's like Legba Katiwulo. That's like this the dawn, the morning sun. It's like and it's like
more information from you on that later for like specific
use.
And that's awesome. But yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, so it's like there's going to be like there may be something within that thing, that energy that was like, that's what you were reaching out to. That was what was reaching back, because it's like Legba has some of the most diverse color arrangements, like I was watching some videos earlier today, and there's one house serves their Legba with a purple and brown, another one serves them with a green and red.
That's
and it's like
different.
Oh yeah, totally. But it's like, when you think about it within the context of the spirit, like what it's about, what is it doing, it makes a lot of sense. It makes it like, where like he is to do with like with purple and yellow rather. With purple and yellow, it's like, we know he has to do with the sun, but he has to do with entering into the spirit world, or into the world of the dead and back again. So it's like
purple is like mystical color, because it's almost like even Odin is purple as a thing, but it's like nobility, but also mysticism in a way. Purple. There's a whole lot of things attached to it. But as far as like working with the Veves, I guess we can bring it back to Veves and in reference to Veves. So when talking about like working with a Papa Legba Veve or a Veve in general, like how do you actually work with them? What is the way of physically doing it, and like some techniques that you would like to share?
So like, the thing with the Veve is like, it's meant to be drawn on the ground. It's meant to augment the energy of the place, of the space around you, to be more conducive, or to bring that kind of energy there. And so a Veve, like, if you really want to get the experience of a Veve, like, because it's like a Veve is also like it's a community thing, because it's the way it's being activated is by like, when we're dancing or saluting, we're walking on the Veve, we're dancing on the Veve, we're crushing it into the ground. It's as much of an offering as much as it is a space beautifying thing.
That's really because usually it'd be like disrespect to walk on a symbol or something. But like for instance, like I've been like flinging perfume or cologne and then like liquor on my Papa Legba baby on a piece of paper. I don't know if it should be on a piece of paper, but it has been for a long time. But I've been doing that for many years. But so it is something that you interact with, like you step on it and you work with it like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like, like because like there's something about it where it's just like it reminds me of those like sand drawings that the Buddhist monks in Nepal do. Where it's like those mandalas, where like you can sometimes you'll go to someone's Vodou party and they'll have like an incredibly extensive, huge veve, drawn out, and the point of it though is that it is in its impermanence. It's like it was here and now it's gone, but we know it's still here. Even if we think about it on like a weird material level, like all the particles that are the veve now have spread throughout the entirety of the peristyle. And it's like
You're transferring magic in a way. It's sort of like the portal, what have you.
right, like it's like the veve in itself is not like. The vivane itself isn't magical, right? It's what you do to it. It's how you interact with it from the point of drawing it, Because so this is my thing where it's like, because I have tattoos of vives, and this is my thing when I think about when we put vives on paper or anything else. It's like the minute that we put a vive into something that can't be destroyed, that's the minute that we've gone over the line, because everything else is truly temporary. Like as much as I want to believe that I'll be alive forever, I know that I'm living in a permanent body, and so the vives that are on me are also impermanent, just as impermanent as that piece of paper. It can be preserved for a very long time, but eventually it probably is going to have some kind of end to its existence in that one form. And so it's like because the veve is like. The veve, if we think about it, like there's this author, Milo Regard. He wrote this book. He wrote a collection of vives, right? And in the front of his book is basically like what he was thinking about with vives. And essentially, when you read it with an open mind, you're like, oh, this guy's talking about quantum mechanics without the language of quantum mechanics, and so he sounds kind of like nutty. But it's like it's the thing. That's the way that we're like through the song, through dance, through interaction, is like the way that the energy is being pushed through this space, and the kind of signals that are being released, as we're.
It's like quantum entanglement in a way, where it's like one particle or one symbol here, whether it be in a different dimension. Like it makes that connection. I'm almost like I'm mixing analogies here, but then like a wormhole in a way. I'm like, does that make any sense? We're like kind of quantum connection or what have you?
Yeah, because it's like it's in a lot of ways like when we think about the spiritual world, like the spiritual world in Vodou is like really varied, and it has a lot of. It's like it could be its own thing, or it could be an atlas, right? But it's like Ghede is somewhere. And we have to get the stuff that is from there to here. The Loa exists on Earth is in that way, but there are some that the way that we understand them is that they're coming. They're coming here, and so that has to be connecting us somewhere. So, there's a really great book that was written by the guy. He's some kind of scientist, right? He's a quantum theory or something like that, but he's also Oungan, and he wrote this book called Vodou Quantum Leap, and it's a really good book, and it's from a Haitian perspective, and it's from a priest talking about these topics and specifically how like the veve, and it's kind of interesting because like even the history of how we get to the veve, right, that we understand today, like the Haitian style veve. Is a combination of a bunch of different spiritual technologies,
And that's what. And then I just want to jump on the term spiritual technology because, so a lot of people think that spirituality is not connected to technology, but in a way, our very bodies, our very pronunciations, our very voice box. This is like ancient technology that they understood spiritually and technologically to use to actually manipulate reality and to work with reality. And it's only in like losing that knowledge as kind of our when we talk about the yugas or whatever, our general, like, our ability to remember or our use for those things deteriorated. But we can learn it once more by learning how to work with these images and learning how to work with these pronunciations and kind of use the same channels. It's almost like we're rediscovering the internet and greater and greater, like, we're increasing our Wi-Fi in a way as we're rediscovering these things. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, it's like, we're definitely like, we're able to realize that we had the tools the whole time. It was just that, like, we perceived them as being something different. It's like I think, when we look at the history of the Veves, right, we like looking at Africa, we got in Benin, or modern day Benin, Dahomey, they were using Kaolin clay, Efun, to draw these symbols for, like, a Lokun has a lot of Agbe had these symbols, and you'll even see in some of the sites that are associated with, like, the kind of the formal Vodouns, like the ones that are associated with convents where people have to go and, like, spend a lot of time somewhere learning about them, that they have very similar kind of symbols as well. Like, I was watching this video the other day of this gentleman at an Izon temple, and they had something that looked almost like the Mino Khan Veve, almost, but like a little bit more simple, but it was like just like that. And it was just really neat to see, like, yeah, there's a lot of, like, oh yeah, this is similar. Another group that influenced the Veve was, like, the Congolese. The Congolese, and use their kind of their cosmogram, literally the cross with the circle.
And you mentioned a Congolese saint in the past too, as well. Yeah, that was very interesting because I never heard of that saint as well.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. The Congolese, like, they really did provide a lot of stuff, not just people, but also, like, energetic and spiritual knowledge that like, this is a huge part of, like, our ancestral stuff, like whether it's hoodoo, voodoo, Santeria, which is usually associated with the Yorubas, but has tons of Congolese stuff in it too, and vice versa. It's because it's all, like, it all mixes at the borders, and it's like, and then there's the Native American stuff, with the Tainos would draw, like, similar kinds of symbols on the ground. They would carve them into the stone. One of the highlights of I don't know, maybe my adult life, I guess, was able to see them in person, to stand, like, and see, like, oh, there's this thing here, and I can see that one over there. And it was like, it's because even in stone, things aren't permanent. They're just there for a long time. But it's kind of like that strange thing with Legba and time, because Legba is the ability to measure the movement of time, it's like with the sun. And so it's like, just because it takes us, our perception of the amount of time it takes for Legba to get from morning to night to morning again is a long time for us. It's not a long time in the sense of time, it's gone on ever onward.
Think about time, and when you mentioned about Veves being temporary, because the Taino used to, like, carve them on, like, ocean shores, like in the shore, and then the tide would come in. It's almost like interaction with time, but also your relationship to realizing your own mortality, but also making these gateways that are very temporary. And it's like this very engaging process with both mortality, but also these gateways that are only temporary, and understanding that they're temporary as they fuse with natural sequences, as they fuse a natural decay or natural, like, wiping away. I really like how you mentioned that even a piece of paper it does have, like, a time limit. It's not like we're forming these out of diamond or something.
Right.
And it's so crazy because those relationships still exist within ourselves because of our relationship with the temporary at that time. And those channels still remain afterwards with those Veves because they're imprinted within our subconscious and within our conscious. And would you say that they also augment our, like, energy, our like our energy fields, and, like, it creates the ease of channels in the future for other Veves, where it's like we create one Veve and then it goes away, and then that channel is easier later on as we create the Veve again?
I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about that in that context. because mostly for me it's like because I'm very rarely am I just drawing a veve for myself at home, or like it's usually in the context of like I'm working with a group of people, so I know that it's like if it isn't me that's vibing with this thing, it's somebody in this room that is, and so it's like, for instance, like I'm okay at drawing vives. Like I'm okay at doing that. It's not my strongest thing, but I'm pretty good at it. But it's like there are some people that they just have that the knack, whether it's like they have that fluid motion, or they know, because like the way that we're tracing them is we're grabbing the cornmeal like this, and then we're kind of like sprinkling it like
Oh, I've done that for many years, but I didn't realize how it's done. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's like, because when you realize like you only and again with that temporary thing is like you only have so much in your hand at one point, and you can only, so you have to make the good use of that. So you have to get the right flow, you have the right grip, and it's really tricky. But I think because like there's a part of the ceremony in like when we do like the more formal version of it, right, where it's called the part of the ceremony is called ceremony, and it's when they trace one veve, and they usually will be the loi that the party is for, or something that has to do with like the reason why we've showed up.
Yeah.
And because it's like when you look at a veve from the countryside, like let's say towards the borderlands of Haiti versus in Port-au-Prince versus in the way up in the north and like Cap-Haïtien or way out there in like Granons, it's like you'll see there's very, sometimes they'll be very minimal. Sometimes it'll be like, oh, the Freda veve, that's just a heart, or the Dantor veve, that's a heart with a knife. Or sometimes it'll be like, oh, that's a heart with a M through it, and it's got these check marks, and every other box is filled in and stuff like that. And then sometimes it'll be like, it's just this, instead of it being this really intricate pattern, it's this kind of blocky, or kind of just, kind of like it's just different in a different way. And it's like, because there's different things I think are happening when people are working with them, on like a local regional style, and then like as we bring that technology out of where it's from and now apply it to different spaces and different people and their creative approaches, because like I was saying before, it's like Vodou has a lot of room for creative interpretation, where it's like, because it's not that like, oh, you have to draw the veve exactly as it is in the book. You know what I mean? Because I'll tell you what, some of my early ones, those things are crooked as hell. But it's like, or like
at first you feel like, sorry to interrupt, but like at first you feel like, oh, it's not exactly right, and you're always trying to like get it just right. But then once you really connect with the veve, it's like, that incorrectness was almost like, it becomes almost intentional, and it just vibes with what you were doing at the time. And then you just kind of get over that hump, because, I think everybody, when they're doing veves for the first time, or, for the first few years, it's always like, oh, I didn't get this circle exactly circular. I didn't get this star just right. But then like it becomes the gateway, and then it no longer feels like it's incorrect. Does that make any sense?
Oh yeah, totally. It's like, for a long time, the one veve that I do for Freda a lot has like, it's the heart, and then as the middle of the heart is like here, it's got the M also is supposed to do that thing, and I can never get that. I can never get it to match up, and so like I've not stopped trying, but I've stopped like caring about like, okay, I get it. This is how I draw the veve, and that's a big part of the thing with the vives too. Is like, the way that credit is given to a person that draws the veve is like, after the veve is traced, they'll take like a little plop of cornmeal, they'll just like that, on the ground, and then they'll put their thumbprint in on it as like a thing, because it's like, I see this in two ways, because it's part of the activation of it is like, you take in the cornmeal and you're kind of blowing it in the wind, in the air around you, because it's, again, that's the dust, it's the dust that was able to gather together in this one time and space in order to do this, to make the symbol. And then it's also that dust that'll be separated and blown, into the winds, as it's being danced upon. So it's like, again, like the random chance of that these things could come together. There's also,
it's almost like commitment. It's almost like commitment, and you're putting your own like life energy into it. When you like, for instance, like breath, like all the calories that it took to like make your ability to breathe out and blow it, and then all your own intricate ability to work with that veve. It's almost like it infuses it with a very particular kind of magic that's from you and the group that you're in. Does that make sense?
yeah, it totally does. Yeah. Cause it is like, there is a sacrifice there. Cause it's like, both the people in Benin and the Congo, they had a similar kind of relationship to their food, which was the yam. That was their staple food, as like, Central Americans and pretty much all Native Americans have a corn. I mean, the idea that it's like, the corn is like a person, and it ages and develops in this way, where even like, yams are one of the non-human things that can get initiated, right? It's like just like corn has its certain rites that it can go through that other plants just wouldn't or don't have, right? And so it's like a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice of food, of like sustenance. It's also a sacrifice of energy. It's also a sacrifice of time and effort. It's like it's because sacrifice is very rarely just a chicken, right? Or it's just the stuff you buy. It's the energy it took to get the stuff. It's the energy that took to get it. All those things here.
The fact that you're committing that energy, there's so many things that are offerings that people usually don't think of as offerings. Whether it'll be like actually, the physical action. So a lot of the time I'll speak into change, like, just pennies before offering it to Legba, like, Hail Papa Legba, or I'll say part of a chant, and then I'll put it in his jar for his change. But every single part of the action is very relational to you and you doing it, and that fills it with magical energy and your commitment and your intention. And that's why I suppose that's why intention is so important, as well as being fully aware every single part of you doing this action. Because if you're fully conscious, you're putting that much more energy into it. Is that a thing?
Yeah, it really has to be, because everything in Vodou is also a meditation. Like it's all like it's a purpose. I mean, I would say everything almost in the culture is, from like there's the way that I learned how to make legime, which is this vegetable soup. Like it's this thing where like, first you put all this in, then the next thing you do all this, then you cover it. At the very end, you cover it with the cabbage leaves. It's like, it's this intentional things that have maybe a purpose, but it also has like this like step 1, step 2, step 3. Instead of it being like, cup of this, cup of that, it's like, you just this layer, then that layer, then this layer. And I mean, that's a lot of like magie is like that too, because it's like everything, like that's why I say, like, if you can't move the Loa with words, you're not gonna be able to do it with a bunch of pins and powders, because it's like it's a lot of purposeful focus and attention. Like, every time you're putting it in there, you're thinking the thing, or you're doing this action, or you're saying this over again and again. Yeah, because it's like, just because I think about this all the time, where I was like, I probably had a half a farm sacrifice to get me to the point I'm at in life right now, but it's like, those to most people aren't a sacrifice. You know what I mean? It's just, that's just the chicken that cost me $30, whatever, right? But it's like so much more than that, because it's like, it's not just the chicken, it's the time, it's all the time it took to raise the chicken from the chick to what it is now.
That's why you have to honor even like the chicken, or like saying it. That's why animals, like people having an issue in Christianity having an issue with animal sacrifice, when like you go to McDonald's and like order chicken nuggets and things like that, you're just consuming the body. You have no relationship with that animal. But if you're for like a sacrifice, you're raising it, you're caring for it, you're loving it, and then the sacrifice means so much more. And it's not even it's about not the suffering. It's not about the suffering of the animal. It's about the love that you put into that. And to get a burger at Burger King or something, you have no value for the animal's life. You have no value or connection to the relationship that a human being should have to its food, or his or her food. as you raise it or commit it? I mean, does that feel very plural to a lot of different systems as well?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's like, the chicken's only not a sacrifice if you don't value a chicken. But everyone truly does value a chicken unless you're a vegetarian. But even then, maybe you do too. I don't know. But it's like, it's it's the thing with Vodou is like, Vodou doesn't it's like it won't ask you to sacrifice something that you don't think is worthy or is valuable, because those aren't sacrifices, like you can't give a lesser thing to get something greater. You know what I mean? You could maybe give several lesser things, but then it's a different kind of exchange. It's like there's kind of this kind of funny flow chart, if you will, like of like how many, if you don't have a goat, how many chickens equal a goat, right? Or it's like how, and then this it's like because these are sometimes questions that people have. You can't get a goat, but you can get a bunch of chickens. It's a thing. But it's not the same thing of like, oh, I could just get them this, and then I'm going to get this thing from it because all they wanted was something. They didn't want something. They wanted a particular something.
Yeah, they wanted something very specific.
Yeah. Yeah, so with Veves, like they too have a lot of different options, because the people were limited to what they had, right? And therein is also another sacrifice, where it's like if you don't have a lot of sugar, and you're gonna use sugar for the Veve, that's the thing, like stuff that, like when we think about Vodou and rum, even, like it's like that's a commodity, that's like that's a export commodity, so it's even has a lot more value to certain people. Tobacco too, but it's like the vase should be something that you're like, when you're interacting with them, you should at least know that it's not something that should be there forever, or that like if you screw it up or if you step on it, it's okay. The Loire aren't gonna come get you or whatever, right? Like one of my guard kids is always like, oh, the Loire are punishing me. I'm like, yes, these cosmic forces came from far and beyond to punish you and make your life miserable, because it's like that's not really what's gonna happen. If anything, like it's about what you're doing in Vodou, because that's what matters, because the Loire will meet you where you're at. So if you're at like some screwed up place in your mind and you're not on the level with yourself,
that's where you're going to manifest, right?
Right, exactly. And so it's like you just be conscious of what you're doing when you're tracing that Veve, that you have like, you have goodness in your heart, that you have like, the idea that you're trying to make a honest connection with something, that you're trying to honor the people that drew that thing before you, that will draw it after you, that will be impacted by you having drawn this energy in this place, because there's like, it's like getting in, this is a whole other topic, but like getting initiated doesn't make you have special powers, right? It gives you maybe certain licenses and certain abilities to interact in different ways, but like, if you are a powerful magician, sorcerer, whatever you want to call yourself, in period, then you are every time you're doing something, So it's like being mindful of that fact, on top of the fact that you're interacting with something that's like known but unknown, because we, even though we may know about the spirits, we don't know about them. They're mysteries.
Oh yeah, and it's so odd when you talked about like you have to have the right intention in your heart. So I have a friend that he doesn't believe in a lot of things, but he's a very kind person, and I've gotten him to like when we've been made Veves in the past. He hasn't made Veves with me in a while, mainly because I started to do them in a more particular way. But like when he was helping with my Veves on the bed of cornmeal, on a big like a big segment of concrete porch, he would the way that he would design the coffee grounds, he always did it so precise and so like lovingly that it always turned out so good. And he doesn't necessarily believe or tap into those things, but because of his intention, everything looked so pristine because he cared about it so much. But even that caring attitude, I feel like that's what you got to start Vodou with. It's like you don't know that much, but like you put a lot of effort and love into it, and then the Loa responded to that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, it does. It's like, if we can think all the way back to, when we're like, I don't know, kindergarten, first grade, making those macaroni things, we put a lot of effort into that, even though it looked kind of probably crazy as fuck. But, it's like, we put a lot of effort into that, and we gave that to these people, like, to put in the fridge. And, like, we're just the same way with the Loire, where it's like, they were down here kind of like gesticulating, making weird noises, pointing at things, and
Toddlers.
they're kind of like, I think they want this, and so like it's about what you put into it, and like the thing that the thing that I really think is something with a little while that people don't quite understand or get until they're kind of deep into it is that like it's where you're at matters, like it's like you can't, if you aren't in a place to receive coolness, like if you're in a hot energetic place, you might need coolness and I need to receive it that way, but that doesn't mean that coolness you can receive it, you know what I mean, like you can like have it come into you or have it come into your world if it's like a spirit that's not about the heat. Vice versa, if you're too energetically cool, something that can't be received into coolness, you know what I mean, may not vibrate that way with you at that
The,
time.
the the energy of the cup that so we're like a cup, and the way the energy that we're open to is what will come into our cup. Like we like whatever we can receive is what we will receive, and whatever we no matter what we say as far as words go or what we think that we want, what we truly are open to is what we will receive, and it honestly just feels a lot like karma and attunement. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It's like, cause like even with a relationship with a Loa, there isn't a Loa that like if you don't have a thing with them, you'll never have a thing with them. It's like, you can try to, but if you were never meant to, that won't be a thing. It's like the Loa that are supposed to show up for you will always show up for you. You know what I mean? It's like, and those are the ones that matter. It's the reason why, like, my reglement is different from the person down the street's reglement, different from even some of my god kids will have different reglement that's based on my reglement, but it's theirs. It's because if they don't have the spirit, then they've got it. If it's like, and it's the thing is like, and you'll never know. This is my whole thing, right? Because I always tried things, especially if it said don't try it, I'd be like, I'm trying that, because like if you don't know and you don't try, you'll never really really know, and it's like the worst that can happen is nothing happens. The worst that can happen is you've talked to something that doesn't totally vibe with you, but then and now there's a more question. It's like it's like there's definitely a reason to have respect for the Loa, but to have just straight plain out fear for them or fear about them or that they're gonna like, because yeah, you do hear all kinds of horror stories, especially like how people like they did this and all these other things happen, but you have to think like this is like, especially like if you have a long relationship with them, like a long standing relationship with them, and then all of a sudden one day you just do something totally weird or turn right. It's like any kind of friendship, it's like if you don't abide by the rules of the friendship or the agreements of the friendship, like yeah, things will change, stuff will happen. But if you're fresh, if you're new, these are new things, these are new relationships. You gotta feel it out,
Yeah, it's like kind of like as above, so below. Like if our parents' relationship to us when we're small and when we don't know a whole lot is very much their relationship to us now. Like it's very understanding. I think what a lot of people miss when they're just thinking about magic and not the beings in and of themselves, they're missing the whole relationship vibe. And like when it comes to Vodou, it feels like the relationship and the intention is like so big, because in magic, intention is huge anyway, but then you have like a whole other like entity, and the whole other entity that you're relating to. So like it's something that I feel like you have to approach without like the whole reason I'm going to Vodou is so I can find a lover, something like that, or going into Vodou to get money, where it's like that is the wrong way to approach anybody in real life. So why would you approach the Loa in this same fashion. Does that make sense?
It does. And I can think back to when because I remember when I didn't really know what the heck I was talking about when it was like with Vodou and what I was going to expect to get from it, or anything. Because it was like, I was looking for stuff to help me deal with the powers that be in my life, and I thought I was going to get a bunch of spells, you know what I mean? Like it was but in reality, I did get that. I did get that stuff. I did get what I was looking for, the way to manage these powers that be in my life, but also the way to manage myself within my life as well. And it's like, because you'll eventually will find the thing you went in for, looking for, even if it was like superficial, because it's even though it's superficial, that's what the Loa are here to help us with the stuff of our lives, stuff that we want to connect us with those things. So if finding a lover is the most important thing, you'll find one. If it's getting the money, you'll find it. But it's how you interact with it and then maintain it, because if you have no respect for the relationship that brought it to you, you won't have respect for that which was brought. So.
Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, man. It's like, because for instance, like there were certain things that I wanted when I went into it for sure, and then for me, it kind of turned into more of a devotion than like, if I don't get these things, I'm gonna be angry with the Loa, and I'm never gonna make them offerings again or work with them again. Over time, I think it became more of a relationship for me. But originally, I definitely I wanted a grander connection with things beyond myself. And then over time, I started to realize what that truly meant. And then those connections became more solidified. Was that similar for you in certain ways?
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's definitely some weird stuff that I was, trying to do. Like I needed to help. I had a lot of, people that were like standing in my way, or like be like bullies, or like would just make my existence very challenging just on the basis that I existed, right? So it's like I was given the tools to deal with those people, but not in the way that I thought that I would receive them. So
100%, man. Yeah. I think that's actually great to end it on. Thank you very much for coming back to the channel, man.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was great.
No problem. Would you like to plug anything before we end it here?
Yeah, you can check out my books on Hadean Press. I have 3 books out so far, with the 4th coming out in early November. I have a Facebook group that's Vodou's Worldwide, and you can communicate with me there, read my posts, and I always talking about Vodou. So if you like talking about Vodou, hit me up.
Excellent. Hey, thanks. I hope to talk to you more in the future. I'm really appreciative for you sharing this information with me and all of the people watching this. And everybody else, we'll see all of you on the channel in the future.